My name is Ryan, and I lived in a nice older duplex in a quiet part of town. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who's about 75 and has lived next door for 30 years. Sweet old lady, she brings me cookies, waters my plants when I'm out of town. The perfect neighbor. Or so I thought. 2 months ago, I started finding handwritten notes slipped under my door. At first, they seemed helpful. Dear Ryan, I noticed you left your kitchen window open last night. Not safe in this neighborhood. Your friend, MP. The man in the blue sedan has been sitting outside your house for 3 days. Thought you should know. MP. I figured she was being protective. Maybe a little paranoid like some elderly people get. I didn't think much of it. But the notes kept coming, and they started getting more specific. You had a phone call at 2:17 a.m. last night. Sounded important. Hope everything is okay. MP. That woman who visited Tuesday stayed until 3:45 a.m. She seems nice. MP. You were crying in your bedroom last Thursday. I made extra soup if you want some. MP. This was getting creepy. My kitchen window faces the backyard, not her house, and my bedroom is on the opposite side of the duplex from hers. There's no way she could hear me crying or know exactly when someone left. I started paying attention to Mrs. Patterson's routine. She goes to bed early, around 8 p.m. Her house is dark by 9, but I started noticing that her car would be gone for hours in the middle of the night, returning just before dawn. Last week, I decided to stay awake and watch. Around 2 a.m., I saw her leave her house through the back door and walk into my yard. She spent about 20 minutes walking around my house, stopping at each window, pressing her ear against the glass. She had a small notebook and was writing things down. I was about to confront her when she did something that made my blood freeze. She pulled out a key and tried it in my back door. It didn't work, but she tried several more keys before giving up. The next morning, I found another note. Dear Ryan, I think someone tried to break into your house last night around 2 a.m. You should get better locks. Your concerned friend, MP. I called a locksmith and had all my locks changed. But that night, I heard scratching at my back door around 3 a.m. When I looked out, Mrs. Patterson was there with a small flashlight, trying new keys. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, she was back in her house, lights off, looking like she'd been asleep for hours. The cops said they couldn't do anything unless I caught her in the act. 3 nights later, I decided to wait by my back door with a flashlight. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard the familiar scratching sound. I waited until she was really focused on the lock. Then I threw open the door and shined the light right on her. Mrs. Patterson screamed and ran. I mean ran, faster than any 75-year-old should be able to move. In her panic, she dropped her notebook right there on my doorstep. What I found inside is going to give me nightmares for the rest of my life. Page after page of detailed notes about my schedule, my habits, my visitors. She knew what time I showered, what I ate for breakfast, what TV shows I watch. She'd been documenting my entire life in obsessive detail for months. There were floor plans of my house with notes about which windows were easiest to access, lists of my friends' names and license plate numbers, even notes about when I pooped and how long it takes. But the worst part was the photos tucked between the pages. Pictures of me sleeping, taken through my bedroom window with a long lens camera. Dozens of them, from different angles, on different nights. Some showed me in the bathroom getting dressed, doing things I thought were completely private. I took the notebook straight to the police station. The officer who looked through it went pale. Jesus Christ, he said, flipping through page after page. This is really disturbing stuff. But then he closed it and handed it back to me. Problem is, this notebook, as disturbing as it is, isn't actually a crime. She didn't actually break in, and it appears all of the photos are taken from outside of your home with windows you left open. There's not much we can do legally. "But look at this stuff," I said. "She knows everything about me. She has photos of me sleeping." "I believe you," he said. "And this is absolutely terrifying. Whoever wrote this is seriously unhinged. My honest advice? Move. Get out of there as soon as you can. People like this, they don't just stop." I'm moving out this weekend, but I looked into Mrs. Patterson's history. The sweet old lady story is bullshit. She's been arrested twice for stalking, once for breaking and entering. The previous tenant in my half of the duplex moved out suddenly after 8 months and filed a restraining order. Before that, there was another tenant who fell down the stairs and died. The police ruled it an accident, but now I'm wondering. I think Mrs. Patterson has been using her age and sweet grandmother act to get close to tenants, study them, and eventually, I don't know what. But I don't think all of her previous neighbors moved away voluntarily. I'm writing this from a hotel room because I can't sleep in that house anymore. But I keep thinking, how many other Mrs. Pattersons are out there, hiding behind sweet smiles and homemade cookies? And what was she planning to do if she ever got inside? This incident is fresh, and I think I've stumbled upon something, I don't know. Let me start from the beginning. I was driving from Phoenix to Denver last weekend, about 12 hours total. Left Friday morning planning to drive straight through, but hit traffic outside Flagstaff that put me way behind schedule. By the time I got back on track, it was already getting dark. I should have stopped for the night. Should have gotten a hotel room and finished the drive Saturday morning. But I was supposed to be at my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner Saturday evening, and I didn't want to let her down. The highway between Flagstaff and the Colorado border is pretty desolate at night. Long stretches with nothing but desert, the occasional truck stop, and those weird rock formations that look like giant fingers in the dark. Around 11 p.m., I noticed a car behind me. White sedan, maybe a Camry, staying about 500 feet back. Not unusual. People drive that route all night. But after about 30 minutes, I realized it was matching my speed exactly. When I sped up, it sped up. When I slowed down for construction, it slowed down. I figured they were just using me as a pace car, following my taillights to avoid having to pay attention to speed limits. Annoying, but whatever. But then I started noticing other things. The car never got closer, but it never fell back either. Even when I passed through small towns with traffic lights, even when I stopped for gas, somehow that white sedan was always there when I got back on the highway, sitting in that same position behind me. Around 1 a.m., I decided to test something. I took an exit for a rest stop, circled around, and got back on the highway going the opposite direction, just to see what would happen. 5 minutes later, the white sedan was behind me again. That's impossible, right? There's no way the same car could have turned around that fast and caught up to me. But there it was, same distance back, same steady following. I started paying closer attention to it in my rearview mirror. The headlights were too bright, like those aftermarket LED bulbs that blind other drivers. But what was weird was that I couldn't make out any details about the car itself. Even when we passed under highway lights, it was just this bright white shape with those piercing headlights. Around 2:30 a.m., I hit a long stretch of completely empty highway. No other cars, no lights except my headlights and the ones behind me. That's when I realized something that made my hands start shaking on the steering wheel. The white sedan wasn't casting a shadow. Every time we passed under an overpass or highway light, my car would throw a clear shadow on the pavement. But behind me, there was just the bright headlights with no shadow, no outline of an actual vehicle. I pulled out my phone to try to take a picture, but every time I pointed the camera at my rearview mirror, the screen would go black. Not like the phone was broken, more like something was blocking the camera from working. That's when I decided to pull off at the next exit and confront whatever was following me. There was a 24-hour truck stop about 20 miles ahead, with good lighting and other people around. But as I took the exit ramp, something happened that made me floor the gas pedal and not stop until I hit the Colorado state line. The white sedan didn't follow me off the highway. Instead, it kept going straight, passing right through the overpass above the exit ramp. Not under it, through it. Like the bridge wasn't even there. I sat in that truck stop parking lot for 3 hours, shaking and drinking coffee, waiting for sunrise. I asked the clerk if he'd seen a white sedan, described the bright headlights. He gave me a weird look and said, "You're the third person this month who's asked about that car." "What do you mean?" I said. "Drivers come through here all shook up, talking about being followed by some white car with bright lights. Always the same description. Always happens on that stretch of highway between here and Flagstaff." He leaned closer and lowered his voice. "Had a state trooper in here last week asking about it too. Said they've had reports, but every time they investigate, there's no car. No tire tracks, no evidence. Just scared drivers talking about something that shouldn't exist." I finished the drive to Denver in daylight and made it to my sister's rehearsal dinner. But I keep thinking about what the clerk said, about other drivers reporting the same thing. I did some research when I got home. Found out that stretch of highway has the highest rate of unexplained disappearances in the Southwest. Cars found abandoned on the shoulder or pulled off into the desert, doors open, keys still in the ignition, but no sign of the drivers. No footprints leading away, no evidence of foul play. Just empty vehicles and missing people. But it's not just drivers. Hitchhikers go missing on that route too. I found at least 24 people in the last decade who were last seen hitchhiking on that stretch of highway, just vanish, completely, without a trace. And that is just the ones that have been reported. The official reports blame everything from wildlife encounters to mental health crises. But now I'm wondering if those drivers saw what I saw, if they were being followed by something that wanted them to pull over, to stop, to get out of their cars in the middle of nowhere. I'm driving back to Phoenix next month for work. I've already booked a hotel room in Flagstaff. I don't care if it adds an extra day to the trip. Because whatever that thing was, it's still out there. Still following lone drivers on dark highways, waiting for someone who's tired enough, scared enough, or stupid enough to stop and find out what it wants. And I don't think the people who stop ever make it to their destination. I should have left it where I found it. God. I should have turned around and walked away the moment I saw that thing sitting against that tree. Let me explain. My name is Andrew, and I'm what you might call a picker. I spend weekends driving through rural areas looking for antiques and collectibles that people have thrown away or forgotten about. Old barns, estate sales, sometimes just junk piles on the side of the road. You'd be amazed what people consider worthless. 3 weeks ago, I was exploring this old logging trail about 50 miles outside of town, the kind of place where people dump furniture they don't want to pay to have hauled away. I'd found a few decent pieces, an oak dresser with good bones, some vintage mason jars, when I saw it. Sitting upright against an old maple tree, like someone had carefully positioned it there, was the most beautiful antique doll I'd ever seen. Bisque head, real human hair, elaborate Victorian dress. The kind of thing that sells for thousands at auction. My first thought was dollar signs. This thing was easily worth $5,000, maybe more if it was a known maker. Someone had either lost it or didn't know what they had. I picked it up carefully, checking for damage. The porcelain was perfect, no chips or cracks. The hair was real and well maintained. The dress looked hand-sewn with actual silk and lace. But what really caught my attention were the eyes. They were glass, but not the flat-painted kind you see on most antique dolls. These had depth, layers, like real eyes, and they seemed to follow me as I examined the doll from different angles. I loaded it into my truck with the rest of my finds and drove home, already planning my research. I'd photograph it from every angle, check maker's marks, compare it to auction records. This could be the score I'd been waiting for. That night, I set up my photography area in the spare bedroom I use as an office. Good lighting, neutral background, the works. I positioned the doll on a small chair and started taking pictures. That's when I noticed something odd. In every photo, no matter how I positioned the doll, its eyes appeared to be looking directly at the camera. Not off to the side like they should be, but straight ahead, focused and aware. I figured it was just an optical illusion, some trick of the glass and lighting. But when I uploaded the photos to my computer and started examining them closely, I felt a chill run down my spine. In the last few shots, the doll's expression had changed. The mouth, which had been neutral, now showed the hint of a smile. And the eyes looked pleased. I must have moved the doll without realizing it. That was the only explanation. I spent the next few days researching, and what I found made my hands shake. The doll was a Heinrich handwork, circa 1890, in pristine condition. Conservative estimate, $8,000. If it had provenance or was part of a famous collection, possibly twice that. I should have been ecstatic. Instead, I felt sick to my stomach. The doll had moved. I'd left it sitting in the chair in my office, but when I came home from work, it was on my kitchen table. Not fallen over, not knocked down, sitting upright, positioned perfectly, as if someone had carefully placed it there. I live alone. My house was locked. Nothing else had been disturbed. I moved it back to the office and made sure to remember exactly how I positioned it. The next morning, it was in my living room, sitting on the couch, facing the television. That's when the dreams started. Every night I'd dream of a dark figure standing in the corner of my bedroom. Tall, impossibly thin, with features I couldn't quite make out in the shadows. It would just stand there, motionless, leering at me with malevolent intent. When I'd try to move or speak in the dream, I couldn't. I was paralyzed, forced to lie there while it watched me with hungry anticipation. I'd wake up gasping, covered in sweat, and the doll would be in a different room. After a week of this, I decided to sell it. I didn't care about the money anymore. I just wanted it out of my house. I posted it on 3 different auction sites with detailed photos and documentation. Within hours, I had dozens of bids. The price climbed quickly. $5,000, $7,000, $9,000. A serious collector from New York offered $14,000 for immediate purchase. I accepted his offer and arranged for shipping the next day. That night, the sleep paralysis was worse than ever. The dark figure wasn't just standing in the corner anymore. It was leaning over my bed, its face inches from mine. I could feel its breath, cold and rotten, against my skin. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. When I finally broke free from the paralysis, I was covered in scratches. Deep, angry red welts across my chest and arms, like something with claws had raked across my skin while I slept. I tried again. Listed it on eBay, sold it to a collector in California for $17,320. Same thing happened, but this time the attack was more vicious. The dark figure didn't just leer at me during the sleep paralysis. It grabbed me, its fingers like ice-cold razors, and threw me around the room. I woke up on my bedroom floor with bruises covering my body and a split lip. The doll was back on the kitchen table. I should have stopped then. should have realized what was happening. But the money. And maybe some part of me thought I could outsmart whatever this thing was. The third time I tried to sell it, I listed it with a different auction house entirely. High-end collectors. Serious money. The winning bid was $15,600. That night, the sleep paralysis episode nearly killed me. The dark figure didn't just attack me. It savaged me. I felt claws tearing at my flesh, felt myself being lifted and slammed against the walls. The thing's face was clearer now, twisted with rage and hunger. It grabbed my head and squeezed until I thought my skull would crack. When I woke up, blood was pouring from my left ear. The pain was excruciating, like someone had driven an ice pick through my eardrum. I rushed to the hospital, but the doctors couldn't explain the damage. Complete hearing loss in my left ear, they said. Trauma to the inner ear consistent with severe blunt force, but no external signs of injury. That's when I understood. Every time I tried to sell the doll, the attacks got worse. The thing, whatever it was, wasn't just trying to scare me. It was escalating, becoming more violent, more deadly. If I tried to sell it again, it might actually kill me. But then I had another idea. Maybe I didn't need to sell it. Maybe I just needed to put it back where I found it. The next morning, I carefully picked up the doll and drove back to that logging trail. My hands shook the entire drive, but I forced myself to go through with it. I found the exact tree where I discovered it and placed it there, sitting against the trunk just like before. "Stay here," I whispered. "This is where you belong." I drove home faster than I should have, but for the first time in weeks, I felt hope. My house felt different immediately, lighter somehow, like an oppressive weight had been lifted. The air didn't feel thick and watching anymore. I actually smiled as I walked through my rooms. That night, I went to bed feeling better than I had since I'd found the damn thing. Maybe it was over. Maybe taking it back to its original location had broken whatever hold it had on me. I was wrong. The sleep paralysis hit me harder than it ever had before, but this time was different. This time, the dark figure didn't just stand in the corner. It climbed onto my bed. I felt the mattress compress under its weight as it crawled over me, positioning itself directly above my paralyzed body. Then it leaned down, bringing its face inches from mine. I could see it clearly now. Not human, but demonic. Its skin was gray and mottled like rotting meat, stretched tight over bones that jutted at wrong angles. Its eyes were black pits that seemed to go on forever, and its mouth was a gaping wound filled with teeth that looked like broken glass. It smiled at me with that horrible mouth, and I could smell its breath, the stench of decay and sulfur. Then its hands wrapped around my throat. The pressure was immediate and crushing. I tried to thrash, tried to fight back, but my body was still locked in paralysis, even as this thing was strangling the life out of me. Its grip tightened, cutting off my air completely. Black spots started dancing across my vision. I fought with everything I had, somehow breaking through the paralysis enough to claw at its arms, to try to pry its fingers away from my throat. But it was like fighting solid stone. The demon was impossibly strong, and it watched my struggles with those empty black eyes, seeming to enjoy my terror. The last thing I remembered was that awful face leering down at me as everything went dark. I woke up the next morning on my bedroom floor, gasping and choking. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass, and when I looked in the bathroom mirror, I saw deep purple bruises around my neck in the perfect shape of fingerprints. But that wasn't the worst part. When I stumbled back to my bedroom, the doll was there, lying on my pillow, positioned exactly where my head had been. It had followed me home. I've been living with this thing for 3 weeks now. I can't sell it, can't give it away, can't even touch it without feeling that overwhelming dread. It moves around my house at will, always watching, always waiting. The sleep paralysis happens every night now, whether I try to sell it or not. The dark figure has become a constant presence, standing in my room, whispering things in my ear, in a language I don't understand. The physical attacks have stopped, but only because I stopped trying to get rid of the doll. I'm writing this as a warning to anyone who might find a similar doll, or any antique that seems too good to be true. Anyone who might think they've stumbled upon some rare, valuable piece just sitting there, abandoned in the woods, discarded by the roadside, or hidden in a dark corner of some old antique shop. Walk away. Don't touch it. Don't take it home. Don't let greed cloud your judgment like I did. Because things like this aren't lost or forgotten by accident. They're left there deliberately, waiting for their next victim. They're bait in a trap you can't see until it's already sprung. And once you claim it, once you bring this evil into your home and your life, you're not just buying an antique. You're entering into a contract written in blood and death, one that you can never break. The doll is sitting on my kitchen table as I write this, watching me with those terrible glass eyes. I can feel its satisfaction, its pleasure at having trapped another soul. I'll never be free of it. And if you're not careful, neither will you.